The World Deadlift Championships is just over a week away. The athletes have already done their biggest lifts in training. So let's take a look at who we think's got the best shot at 505. So 2nd of September, the World Deadlift Championships taking place in Cardiff. Link in the description below if you want tickets. I don't think there's many left actually.
No, I don't think
but you can watch along on Official Strongman. Now, unfortunately, there are a few athletes that have had to pull out with a couple of injuries. But I think the main few athletes that have a legitimate shot at the 505 are all still in this competition.
Yeah, I guess maybe one exception in people's minds might have been Adam Bishop, who's talked about doing 505. Pavlo Nikonechny has talked about doing 550. I'm not sure if that's a language barrier, but
I think that might be some kind of translation issue there. Unfortunately, Pavlo is, if you can go and look on his Instagram, he's had a car crash. He's actually in hospital. So we're presuming he's not going to be turning up.
He's not going to. No. Yeah. And also Adam Bishop, we don't know for sure what's going on with Adam yet because
picked up the pec injury at the Shore Classic last weekend. So yeah, another one that sort of we're just not quite sure of at the moment. But we do have 3 athletes that I think are really worth looking at in terms of the world record, and another guest athlete that I think we need to look at regardless because he's going to be very exciting. I'm talking about Jamal Browner. So let's start off with the man that's had more attempts at this world record than anyone else, even Makarov. This is a man that the last few years he's dedicated his life to chasing this deadlift record.
Hell-bent.
He's had a number of decent attempts. We've seen some huge lifts from him over the last few years. I mean, he has pulled massive numbers time and time again. I always worry when someone does so many heavy pulls because really when you look at the best deadlifters of all time, they tend to have a certain amount of big lifts in them. Yeah. And it starts to then really affect the body in terms of recovery, breaking down, potential injuries. You don't see guys just keep pulling these 1,000-pound plus weights all the time. However, he's managing to do that so far, and he's looking bigger and leaner than I've ever seen him.
Yeah, and he's quite young, isn't he? He's in his early 30s. I don't think people realise that.
I thought he was younger than that, actually.
Yeah, he might be. I know he's younger than me. Well, That's all I know, but I'm not that young. So maybe it's not the best measuring stick.
So 2 years ago, he won the Deadlift World Championships. Last year, he ended up in, joint second, I guess, but he did attempt the 505.
He did, but I mean, every time he's attempted the 505, it's been almost the exact same story. Like the sticking point, or the stopping point, I guess, is in the same place, just below the knees.
Yeah, from a technical point, watching even, if he has the power to blast it from the floor, he can kind of hitch out the last little bit. He doesn't quite have the lockout power or the smoothness of maybe some of the others that have a better lockout, but his power off the floor is incredible. He's someone that's going to rely on absolutely blasting it. He needs it to go up as high as possible off that initial leg drive. I feel if he can't get it past his knees, he then doesn't have that lockout power to kind of stay with it and pull through smoothly.
So let's look at some of the lifts that Even has recently posted on his Instagram, starting with this 450 kilos that he posted a couple of weeks ago. He also more recently posted this elevated 480 kilo lift. And finally, we have this 486 kilo lift. Now, it's not on calibrated plates. The setup looks a little bit crude here.
Yeah, I mean, this is, on paper, this is the biggest lift that we've seen out of anyone leading up to this competition, 486 kilos, and it moves fast. You've got to say it moves very, very quickly. The setup is a little bit dodgy, and I don't mean any disrespect to Even on that, but when we compare this lift and setup to the next 3 lifters who are all lifting on calibrated plates, which they'll be using in competition, you get a better understanding. Now, I'm not saying this isn't a huge weight, because it clearly is, and it's extremely powerful, and he's looking very, very strong. But when you are using just standard plates, each plate can be up to a kilo out quite easily. You'll see that if you go and weigh your plates in a gym, if they're not calibrated, sometimes they can go the other way. They can be a little bit heavier as well, so maybe it's even more. But looking at the setup, he's got weights attached to the bar, weights that are kind of like all various different sizes.
He's on mats.
Yeah, he's got the bar on some mat, or the plates on some mats as well. It's only elevated by maybe an inch, but it's not a huge amount. But these are little factors that do make a difference when you get to competition and everyone's on that standard bar. So he's looking extremely strong. He's looking big. He's looking powerful. From watching him over the last few years, I think we're going to see a similar kind of... I think he potentially could pull the biggest weight because he's someone that tends to go for a lot more lifts. Like we've seen him do I mean, last year he didn't. He went straight for the world record. The year before, however, he did go for the 475. Pulled that really well. It seems to be once it gets close to sort of 10 to 20 kilos of the world record, that's when it starts to get a bit harder. If this is legit, then he genuinely has a shot at this 505.
And interestingly, this moves way better than his 450.
Yeah, which is... It's just a little bit confusing because there's no sort of consistency in the setup.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'll say.
It's hard to compare.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's like. We know he's got pedigree. We've seen him do big lifts in competition before. So it's not, I'm not questioning his power.
No.
It's just until we see him on that exact bar, it's hard to tell exactly where he's at. So the next athlete we're looking at is Graham Hicks. Now, this man has dedicated the last 5 to 6 months of his life on this record. He's pulled out of other shows. His training has been all about the road to 505. He's looking supremely powerful. Graham, we all know how strong he is. The main issue we've had from Graham in the last couple of years is performance on the day and getting himself to the competition feeling his best. I think you've put together a few lifts of his.
I have, yeah. Should we take a quick look?
Yeah.
Okay, so Graham's competition PB right now is 454 kilos, which he pulled at last year's competition. That was a massive jump up as well because his PB before that, his official PB in a max deadlift was like 400 kilos.
It was, but we'd obviously been up training with him and knew he was going to destroy that. Graham is ridiculously powerful. And up until recently, his training for this was going very, very well. He pulled 450, which was phenomenal. The power off the floor, he generates so much power off the floor, very, very strong. Slows down a fraction. If you watch really closely, the lockout is just starting to slow a little bit, but the power off the floor is probably the best out of any of these athletes. So strong in the legs. He was in his last training session meant to go up to 470 kilos, but he stopped at 440, just feeling a slight twinge in his hamstring. Hopefully nothing that's going to affect him on the day. Hopefully he's been able to get a good solid treatment on that and is feeling fresh and ready. He looks powerful.
He does.
I would say, looking at all the athletes, I feel Hixie has the best power off the floor.
Okay.
There's other athletes I think have slightly better lockout, but maybe not as powerful off the floor. If we could combine these athletes, we would have the supreme deadlifting machine. So my only concern with Hixie really is what shape's his body going to be in, because that's going to be a question mark that probably is in the back of his head now. He's a confidence lifter. When he's feeling good, it gets better. When something slightly goes wrong, sometimes he can let these things kind of affect him. So I'm hoping he's feeling good and he can apply 100% and show what we all know he's capable of.
And finally, we have Rauno Heinla, winner of last year's Deadlift World Championships with a 476 kilo pull, which incredibly is also now the Masters Deadlift World Record. We were recently with him in Estonia, where he pulled a 540 kilo world record 18-inch deadlift. And he's recently posted a 460 kilo deadlift in preparation for this competition.
It's quite interesting because his prep last year, 460 was his biggest lift in the gym as well. So we can actually compare the two, which is nice to see. And he is looking, I think, a little bit better this year. His 476 at last year's competition was a fantastic lift. You can see with Rauno, it's still powerful off the floor, but not quite that same power as Hixie. But once it goes over those knees, his lockout is extremely strong. And we know that from his 18-inch deadlifts. And, he's got such a lovely, powerful, strong lockout to any deadlift that he does. So the question with Rauno is, does he have that power to get that 505 up to the knees?
If he does, I think it goes up. He's got a new suit.
He has. He's got a new suit that he seems to be happy with, seems to be giving him a little bit more pop off the floor. So he's hopeful. He believes he can do it, and he is planning on attempting the world record. We know from speaking to him. Last year, he wanted to win the competition. This year, he's not fussed about winning the competition. He wants the world record. So all being well, all being fit and healthy, we're at least going to see one person go for this record. I think we're going to see a number of athletes.
It's interesting. We've never seen him go for it before. Even we've seen a few times. Graham, obviously, we haven't seen go for it. And Rauno, neither.
It would be so good if all three of these athletes turn up in shape.
Yeah.
I think there's like a 20% chance that we see the record. At one point, I was thinking 1%.
No chance, yeah.
You know, the improvements that we've seen from the athletes, the confidence that they're talking, you know, it's getting me excited now.
Good.
And I think there is a chance. Like I said, I'd love to combine sort of Hixie and Rauno because I think that is the ultimate deadlifting machine.
Yeah.
But you know, could you imagine if all three end up going for it?
Yeah, I was going to say, when it went in 2016, what was exciting there is that there were three men still in contention,
Yeah,
Jerry,
so Jerry
Benny
Pritchett,
and Eddie.
yeah.
And we've never had that since. No. So if all three could get to that bar, that would be very interesting to be able to analyse it later.
We need to find out from the organisers what the jumps are going to be. And then the athletes need to take those risks because you can't really just go all the lifts and expect to pull the 505. The athletes are going to have to be strategic, take risks, you know, risk not winning the competition because if you want this record, really you've got one chance at it. It's going to be very difficult to around 470, 480 and then pull 505. So we wish all three of them the best of luck. There is one more athlete you want to take a look at though. Because it's an exciting one, it's very different. But Jamal Browner, who is an incredible sumo deadlifter, is competing in this competition just as a guest only. So he's not doing the full strongman show. He's there just for the deadlift. But he's pulling conventional and he's pulling without a suit.
Which is really incredible, isn't it?
Well, you look at the size of him, you know, we all kind of get into this debate of sumo doesn't count and all this kind of stuff. Well, Jamal has proved he is a strong deadlifter on any type of deadlift. His training videos, although maybe not quite as much weight as some of the other guys, he's still pulling some huge weights, much lower body weight, and like we said, without a suit. The question is, can he pull 1,000 pounds? I think that's his goal.
It is, but he did have a failed deadlift recently in training, and I admire him putting it out there because that's tough, isn't it?
There's one thing I've got a lot of respect for Jamal. He just puts his training out there for people to see. There's no, you know, if it fails, if it's good, he's putting it out there, showing people that we have bad days as lifters. I'm actually really excited to meet him and see what he can do. Really admire the way he lifts. I'm not one of these that kind of gets into the debate of sumo or conventional. For me, they are different lifts. But the one thing is for sure, this man is strong. Extremely strong at sumo deadlifting, extremely strong at conventional deadlifting. And I'm quite looking forward to seeing if Pa turns up and these two are, you know, meeting each other. So it's going to be really fun to see how he does.
So guys, make sure you tune in on the 2nd of September. The Deadlift World Championships is part of the Giants Live World Open in Cardiff. The stream is available on www.officialstrongman.com. We're going to be there getting you guys all of the behind the scenes action, and make sure you comment below to let us know your thoughts and who you think has the best shot at 505.